So Kawhi Leonard broke the NBA, the internet, I think I'm forgetting something, the heart of this LeBron James fan over the weekend. But amidst all the hoopla, it's easy to forget that just a year ago, Leonard missed all but 9 games due to a mysterious quad injury, an injury that came about during a summer in which he was recovering from a nasty ankle sprain he suffered in the 2017 Western Conference Finals. Thank you, Zaza.
Nothing easy!
Shades of the current situation of the other crown jewel of this free agent class, Kevin Durant, who will be getting $161 million from the Brooklyn Nets despite not being able to walk at the moment. And yet somehow the circumstances surrounding that injury are even more compelling, puzzling, and curious than any of the signings that have happened this summer. So much so that we felt the need to take a deeper dive. What happened to Kevin Durant's leg on June 10th, and why? Now, we've enlisted the help of physical therapist and sports clinical specialist Brian Hoke, assistant professor in the Old Dominion Department of Movement Sciences Hunter Bennett, and associate professor of exercise science at Norfolk State Kathleen Thomas, as we try to answer these questions. Let's start with the what. Now, we know that Kevin Durant ruptured his Achilles, but what does that actually entail?
This is the Achilles tendon, and it actually attaches right onto the back of the calcaneus, or as we refer to it as the heel bone. Okay? And it comes up all the way up, and some of them can be relatively long. Mine is not that long, but if you're 6'9", that tendon is really long. Okay? And it attaches onto the gastrocnemius, and underneath of it we have the soleus muscle.
The 2 calf muscles are going to come together and form this tendon, this Achilles tendon that anchors to the heel bone. And if it is cut or fails and breaks all the way off, then you're actually going to have the muscle kind of recoil and pull back from where it was.
2 things with the Achilles. It'll be on landing, or as somebody goes to change directions and they kind of preload the tendon, they kind of put it on stretch so that they can accelerate forward. That's when the injuries happen.
Whew, well, that sounds rather unpleasant. Now that we've learned all about the Achilles, it's a great time to point out that this exploration really isn't all that much about the Achilles. It is and it isn't. In fact, it's kind of more about everything else. See, the body is an epic, dynamic, interconnected machine. If one part malfunctions, the rest of the machine will be affected. And this is our first step in approaching the why, understanding the kinetic chain.
So we call this the concept of a kinetic chain. So we have moving parts, so lots of different things that have to work together to function.
But it essentially starts at the foot, right? And every amount of force that goes through the foot comes up through the tibia. The tendons attach the bones to the muscle. But the purpose of the musculature is to kind of absorb some of those forces.
You know, forces, the pressures that we put on the ground and on our feet to stand up, they don't just stop at the foot. You know, they flow through. So I can just stand quietly, and just by moving my feet, I can start to move around and accelerate my trunk back and forth. So this flow through is very much in existence.
And more specifically, how this kinetic chain concept impacts the understanding of sports-based injuries and compensation.
If I hurt my right ankle in a sprain, I'm going to susceptibly probably hurt my left hip to make up for the fact that I can't push off of my foot.
Okay, back to Durant. Now let's establish a timeline. On May 8th, Durant suffers what is deemed a strained right calf in a game against the Houston Rockets. Durant misses 9 games over the course of about a month, cleared for practice on Sunday, June 9th, one day before Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Kevin Durant then plays 12 of the first 14 minutes of that game before tearing his Achilles. Warriors general manager Bob Myers on the injury after the game.
The initial injury was a calf injury. This is not a calf injury. I'm not a doc. I don't know how those are related or not. But it's a different injury.
Now, despite what Myers says, the facts here are hard to ignore.
To break apart the body and say that somehow the muscular issue that he had, a calf strain, was not related in any way to then tearing of the Achilles is it's not possible, right? They're connected together. These two things go together. So what can happen when you have a muscular strain is the muscle's going to tighten up. And so when the muscle tightens up, what it's doing, if it's always tight because it's trying to rehab or trying to recuperate from being strained, is it's going to always put a load on the tendon. And that, again, that same thing of a load that's applied in some manner that the body wasn't expecting or wasn't used to is then now something new that the body has to respond to.
Okay, so the troublesome calf feels like a clear and present culprit, right? But let's examine some other potentially related factors. The injury also caused Durant to sit out for a month, going from peak physical and mental playoff-ready condition to relative inactivity before returning for Game 5 of the NBA Finals, as tense and stressful a game as you'll find.
The level of play that he has as well, right? So he's not asked to come back mid-season to a team it's been doing well without him. He's asked to come back in the finals when you're already down. So he's playing at a higher level than probably even he would be if he were just coming back after a month off. So I could certainly see that being a problem.
Now, going back even further, a player of Durant's caliber has been playing high-level basketball year-round since he was a child. Every sprint, cut, jump, landing, those things add up.
It's like cycles. If we wanted to break a coat hanger, if you bend it enough times, the material fails, and human bodies are the same way.
But with all of this on the table, why was Kevin Durant on the floor that night? Why would one of the most esteemed medical staffs in the business and a player in the final year of his contract with his own esteemed medical personnel assess that level of risk and still decide to play? Well, obviously we can't crawl inside his head, but we have an idea.
That's the goal. The goal is to be playing after everybody else isn't.
If he wants to play in that final, he's going to try to play in that final.
I think athletes are almost always going to choose that. Well, I need to contribute to my team. They helped me get here. I want to be a part of this win, and so on.
If that is the case, at least we know that there is one part of his body that we cannot and should not question: his heart.